Hello everyone. So before we start, I just want to take a minute and say that for whatever reason in this video my energy is very low, which I'm very sorry about because I'm actually very excited. Carry on. So, today I'm not in front of my bookshelf, I am in front of some posters because I'm talking about movies today instead of books, and I'm just going to be talking about my favorite movies of the year, favorite movies that came out this year and that I saw, and also movies that I wanted to see this year but wasn't able to that I thought might be on this list. Also, I have a few honorable mentions from this year that I couldn't make onto my top 5 movies of the year, but I still really enjoyed, and I wanted to acknowledge them as good movies. So I'm going to start with the movies that I wanted to see this year that I thought might be on this list if I got to see them, but either I just didn't get around to seeing it or the movie's not out yet in wide release, so I haven't been able to see it. And the first movie on that list is Baby Driver. This came out earlier in the year and it got a lot of good buzz, and I just really wanted to see it but I never got to. Another one is Phantom Thread, which has now one of my favorite actors of all time, Daniel Day-Lewis, who is insanely good in a movie that I will talk about in just a second. And I really wanted to see this. It came out in limited release on Christmas, but it will be in wider release in January, which I'm hoping to see it then. Another one is Get Out, which is directed by Jordan Peele, who is of Key and Peele, which a lot of you guys know. And this is a movie that I guess was kind of like a silent masterpiece that just came out of nowhere and everybody loved, and I really want to see it. And then the last one on that list is The Disaster Artist, which is starring and being directed by James Franco, and it is the story of how what is considered possibly the worst movie ever made, The Room, was made. And it looks amazing, it's getting a lot of good buzz, and I wish I got to see it. Now I'm going to talk about some movies that I saw this year that were not released this year, but I still loved them nonetheless. The first one on that list is 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick. This movie came out in 1968 and was just so influential on the science fiction genre, and as someone who loves filmmaking and how films are made and things like that, this film is just a masterpiece, and I encourage anyone who is interested in film to see it. Don't expect a big action movie. Just go in expecting a gorgeous spectacle because it's amazing. Another one I saw this year that did not come out this year is There Will Be Blood, which stars Daniel Day-Lewis, like I said, who is also in Phantom Thread. And this is possibly the greatest performance I've ever seen. He is completely unrecognizable, and even his voice is just completely different. This movie focuses on what greed will do to somebody, and it's amazing. You have to check it out if you are into acting at all. Another one I saw this year that I heard was good, but I kind of expected myself to be disappointed by it, is Zodiac. Zodiac is a crime kind of thriller about the Zodiac murders that took place in the 60s and 70s. This movie, even though it's almost 3 hours long, is so interesting and so just edge of your seat. It's amazing. I love it. It's easily one of my favorite movies of all time now. Next one is from my favorite director of all time. This was the movie that put him on the map, and that is Memento by Christopher Nolan. This movie is absolutely insane. When you're watching it and you figure out how it's being told, it's insane. It's being told completely backwards. So the first scene in the movie is actually happening at the very end, and the last scene in the movie is happening at the beginning, yet somehow there is still mystery as to what is going on. The last movie on the list of movies that did not come out this year, but I saw this year, is Arrival, which I watched last night and is amazing. It was nominated for Best Picture last year, and it's starring Amy Adams and Forest Whitaker and Jeremy Renner. It is absolutely amazing. It is about aliens who come to Earth, and it's not an action movie. It's more of a drama, and we're trying to figure out how to communicate with them and all the struggles that come with that. It's absolutely amazing, and I recommend it to everyone. Now, getting on to the movies that actually came out this year. So before I get into the top 5, I have some honorable mentions, and those honorable mentions are It, Justice League, and Wonder Woman. It was my first experience with a legitimate horror movie, and I was so nervous going into it because I don't like horror movies. But this movie almost, like, I wouldn't consider a horror movie. It's more of like a coming of age adventure drama, and I loved it for a reason that I didn't expect. I expected to go in loving the clown and being like creeped out by that, but I loved the group of kids just for like their dialogue and their chemistry. Absolutely amazing. I would recommend, unless you're super squeamish, I would recommend to go see it. Next, I have Justice League, which is interesting because if you told me a year ago that Justice League was going to be on my favorite movies of the year list, even as an honorable mention, I would have been like, no, it's not. This movie had a lot of troubles in production, and it did not look like it was going to come out well. And while some people will still say it's a horrible movie, I don't think so, especially considering everything that happened in the making of this movie. I think it turned out as a very entertaining movie. I didn't love the villain. That's another problem I had with Wonder Woman also. The villain was just underwhelming, but the group, the Justice League itself, was the best part of the movie by far. Even the story, to me, wasn't all that great, but the characters around it made it more entertaining than it would have been without them. And then Wonder Woman, which is one that was in my top 5 list, and then I started to remember more movies, and it got knocked down to my honorable mentions. Still a really great movie. Again, the villain kind of held it back for me a little bit, but I really enjoyed Wonder Woman. Now we get into the top 5 movies of the year for me. There's some movies on this list that you will not agree with, and that's fine. So my number 5 is Logan. Logan is an X-Men movie that we've never ever seen before, and we probably will never see again. Hugh Jackman has been playing Wolverine since 2000, and he continues to be great in every single one of them. I'm someone who's a fan of the X-Men movies, but only really loves 1 or 2 of them. And this movie blew me away. It is more of a drama and like a character piece than an action movie. It's definitely not what you would expect from an X-Men movie. And though there is the very brutal R-rated violence, which is awesome, it's also pretty emotional, and by the end, it's like you go on this journey and it's kind of crazy. So Logan is my number 5. My number 4 is another one from my favorite director. This was maybe my most anticipated movie of the year behind Star Wars, and that is Dunkirk. Dunkirk is so unique because World War II movies have been done to death, and Christopher Nolan found a super unique way to tell this story, and I really, really enjoyed it. I rewatched it again recently, and there's a point in the movie where all 3 separate storylines meet up, and now both times I've watched it, that moment is just so satisfying because the film is told from 3 separate points of view at 3 different times, and when they all meet together, it's like everything makes sense, and it's very satisfying. Now, my top 3 were pretty difficult, especially the top 2, but for my number 3, I put War for the Planet of the Apes. This is the conclusion to one of the best trilogies around. Andy Serkis gives another amazing performance, and he deserves an Academy Award nomination at this point, but honestly, they're not going to give it to him, which is kind of really, really dumb. Though the title War for the Planet of the Apes is very misleading, as you will hear pretty much anybody else who talks about this movie say, it's very misleading. I would have called it something else. But it is, I've said this about pretty much every movie on this list, but it's more of a drama than an action movie, and it's super, super well done, and I'm so glad that this trilogy came to a close with a great finale. My number 1 and number 2 were very difficult to choose between, and I had to ask myself, for my number 2, am I putting it at this spot because I'm a fanboy, or do I genuinely think this? And at this point, I think this is my honest opinion, and it's a very controversial one, but Star Wars The Last Jedi is my number 2. I've been a Star Wars fan my entire life. I don't remember a time where I didn't know the story of episodes 1 through 6, and then I was insanely excited when they announced episodes 7, 8, and 9, obviously. Star Wars The Last Jedi was my most anticipated movie of the year, and I'm thinking about possibly doing another video just about Star Wars The Last Jedi because I have a lot of thoughts about it. So let me know if you'd like to see that, but I have major issues with this movie, but at the same time, there are so many things about this movie that I absolutely love, and I love where they're taking the series, and it makes me so excited. I've seen the movie 3 times at this point, which is more than I've ever seen any movie in the theaters, and I love it every time. I take that back. When I saw it the first time, I came out of the theater liking it, but having a lot of conflict in me, being like, okay, I didn't like that part, and like, I've never had a Star Wars movie where I come out of the theater, I'm like, okay, I really didn't like that. The more I thought about it, I really do have some pretty big problems with this movie. But then I saw it a second time, and a lot of my problems went away, and the great things came up, and I was like, okay, I love it. I came out of the theater loving it the second time. Saw it a third time, my opinion really didn't change much. Again, have some big problems with it, but it gives us some of the greatest Star Wars moments of all time, and I'm a Star Wars fan at heart, so that's where I had to put it. Now, number 1 is a movie that I did not expect to be at number 1. It's the first movie I saw this year, and I am still shocked that I'm saying it. I would have expected Star Wars to be on my number 1, to be honest. It's a movie that I've thought about ever since I saw it back in January, and every time I think about it, I just don't have any issues with it, and that movie is Split, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. This is the first time where I was ever excited for a horror movie. I wouldn't call it a horror movie now that I've seen it. It's more of a psychological thriller, and I can't believe how great it was. I haven't seen this movie on anyone else's number 1 spot on their top 10 list or anything like that, but for me, it was just an amazing movie. James McAvoy gives the performance of a lifetime, and a performance that really inspires me as someone who wants to be an actor, and it just shows what actors are capable of, and he gives an incredible performance. He plays a character who has split personalities. He has 23 different personalities. We get to see, I think, about 8 or 9 of those personalities in the movie. I'm so glad this movie did amazing at the box office, because now we're getting a sequel in 2019, and I'm just so excited. This movie also looks gorgeous. It is beautifully shot and beautifully lit, and I love every single minute of this movie. So that is it for my top 5 favorite movies of the year, along with some other movies that I saw. Thank you so much for watching this video. No, it was a different video for me. I've mainly been a book channel, and if you're wondering why I'm suddenly doing a movie video, refer to this video right here where I talk about everything that's happening with my channel. And I hope you have a great 2018. I'm very excited about what the future holds for my channel, and I hope you guys continue to watch and continue to enjoy. Also, let me know what your personal list is in the comments below, and I will see you guys the next time that I